The Odysseys of Ulysses events took place when the world was upside down. And the writer says, "Dear friends, that I must admit that lately have been in a bit of a strange phase as I was trying to clarify an important detail which I will share with you now that everything is clear." And I begin. As we know, Ulysses, when traveling by raft from Ogygia to Scheria, had to have the Great Bear on his left hand. We're talking about the stars in the sky, the constellations. Given this, we should complete the picture of Ulysses' journey by saying that the raft has no engine but a sail. This statement, as strange as it may seem, is important because everyone who reads the Odyssey takes it for granted and then forgets it because it does not impress them. But why is it so crucial? Because, dear reader, this simply gives us the way Ulysses sat on the raft. So I asked a friend of mine, a sailing ship captain, to explain to me where he would sit on a potential raft. And the answer was relatively close to the helm and on the opposite side from the side that inflates the sail, something like that. Although in this particular image we see people, their position is no different from that of a single person. The wind blows from behind them and inflates their sails, and they both, holding the ropes and with the position of their bodies, that is, their weight, try to navigate their boat. Under no circumstances could they sit on the opposite side or from behind. The reason is very obvious. One more small note. These particular sailors, quite coincidentally, also have the following characteristics. Their left hand is towards the bow of the ship. So in order for him, assuming he made a similar journey, to have the Great Bear on his left hand, the Great Bear would have to be in front of him and essentially heading towards it. This simple observation also shows how important this information was, since he would not be able to see constellations that were at his back, and even if he had them in front of him, they would still not help him, since only the Great Bear, the constellation that he had on his bow, could he chart a sure course. The complete image of Ulysses, who on the raft, to complete the image, would try to steer it in a similar way. Being a very experienced sailor, he would find where the wind was blowing from. And here we should emphasize that because sea currents and winds are interrelated events, we can claim, without making a mistake, that we can find the directions of the winds in the sea area if we know the movement of the currents. If we hypothetically go to the Ionian Sea, then we'll see that the movements of the current is as follows. There is a current near the coast that rises towards the Adriatic Sea. That's between, the Adriatic Sea is between Malta and Italy. And a current in the rest of the Ionian Sea, that's between Italy and Greece, that descends towards the Mediterranean. So anyone who wanted to cross the Ionian Sea from Italy to Greece, and of course by raft, would have to have their back to the north and move from west to east, having constellations that are close to the level of the celestial equator in their bow, which means that in no case could they be invisible. The only case would be for someone to start from the Sicily area so that there would be the possibility of seeing some invisible constellations, but in this case we would have to find the non-existent island. But again, the following logical problem would arise. Why would not he go to Sicily or Lower Italy when they logically would be visible from the hypothetical island? Of course, Ulysses is on an island that has no trace of land near him, so he couldn't be in the Ionian Sea, but let the experts figure this out. Another question is why he didn't even see ships passing by, since the Ionian Sea was always teeming with life. We said experts. I would like to mention in passing that recently many people have been giving lectures on the topics of Homeric geography. Unfortunately, very far from my city, the nonsense that is being said is indescribable. Of course, always with the style of 1,000 cardinals. But let's continue with the plot, since we've already said the rest. The official version does not cover logic in any of its aspects. A traveler in the southern hemisphere, now traveling from right to left on a raft, would be the opposite position to that described earlier in the Ionian Sea. He would have his back to the south and therefore his forehead to the north, his left hand to the bow, and of course, in a not too south area, he would be able to see for the appropriate period of time the Great Bear at the bow. Dear readers, it's the first part we mentioned why he could not see the Great Dipper while traveling in the Ionian Sea. Here we'll also see the temporal problem that exists in this. To be reliable, I'll present you as always evidence, and only evidence that each of you can find and judge. I start with well-known maps showing the precession of the equinoxes and the movement in time of the North Magnetic Pole. And we can here see obviously that around 1200 BC, the following happens, even if we accept that there is a non-existent island somewhere in the area near or far away from Sicily, and someone wants to go from there to Ithaca or Corfu. In 1200 BC, the North Magnetic Pole was located approximately below the delta of the Great Bear. Therefore, anyone moving from Italy to Greece, even at an angle, would have at most the Great Bear on their bow, and of course, they would not be able to distinguish whether this belonged to the Great Bear or another constellation, since they would have the North and therefore the Great Bear on their back and would not see it. On the contrary, someone in the southern hemisphere, a few degrees south or in the north, but with the exact position opposite movement, would see the Great Bear on his bow. In fact, this would be better understood if the date of the trip was closer to 2000 BC. So, as you can see for yourself, no raft operator, unless he had an outboard motor on board, could use the Great Bear as a reference point for the Italy-Corfu journey because he simply would not see it. And these are the thoughts of Pausanias from Periplos concerning what is written in the Odyssey. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.